it has been said, I am from the University of Johannesburg. And the University of Johannesburg is a 50,000 students, 8,000 staff members, and 6 campuses university. It is the university that has positioned itself as a university that is driving the attainment of the 4th Industrial Revolution so that no one in Africa is left behind. And quite recently, by the QS Global Rankings, it is ranked 2nd in Africa. And according to the Times Higher Education Global Rankings on Sustainable Development Goals, it is actually ranked 2nd in Africa also. With 4,500 international students from more than 80 different countries and 20% of staff who are international, it is actually making quite a great strides in artificial intelligence. As I bow out from the University of Johannesburg to the United Nations, I reflect with a deep sense of agency the need for us to pass to the development of our continent, Africa. In this very important task of developing Africa, we obviously should not leave anyone behind, and artificial intelligence is going to be a crucial instrument for us to achieve that. We therefore should spare no effort to ensure that as many people in our continent are as educated, especially with regards to technology, as possible. As the African continent, we find ourselves somewhat in an economic malaise. This represents a marked setback for the continent that boasted an impressive growth story just a few years ago. In fact, as Frank Kerber and Van Wezenbach wrote in 2017, Africa Rising, a Historical Perspective, the economic growth story in the last 2 decades has unseated the deep sense of Afro-pessimism that dominated the 1980s and 2000s and replaced it with a more optimistic and at times even Afro-euphoric outlook. I remember too well when I was a PhD student at Cambridge, a cover article appearing in the magazine The Economist titled Africa, the Hopeless Continent. I vowed then, as I do now, that Africa is not hopeless, but represents the greatest hope for the future of our planet. But in order to achieve this, we have to work hard. The COVID pandemic has set us back, but we should not despair. A recent study by the African Development Bank revealed some of the deep fissures we face. The challenges are huge, but the opportunities are great, and if we make the right choices, they are even greater. These challenges range from the impact of climate change as a growing threat to the lives and the livelihoods of Africa, to the economic disruptions stemming from the Russia-Ukraine war, which could push a further 1.8 million people across the African continent into extreme poverty in 2022, and another 2.1 million in 2023, to our additional financing needs, which are currently estimated at $432 billion US, to the lingering impact of the COVID-19, it is therefore apparent that our growth story is indeed facing some difficult terrains. We seem a world away from the Africa Rising story that dominated prior to the pandemic years. In fact, the economic boom we experienced at the time projected to lift the region's bottom millions out of poverty by 2030 is under threat. And therefore, I congratulate the organizers of this forum for organizing this. Because for us to move out of this economic malaise, investment into technology, especially artificial intelligence, is going to be very crucial. Data indicates that around 30 million people in Africa were thrust into extreme poverty in 2021, and approximately 22 million jobs were lost. Furthermore, growth has faltered significantly, and according to the World Bank, it is expected to further decelerate in 2022 amid a global environment with multiple and new shocks, high volatility, and uncertainty. Some analysts have called for a great reset to relaunch the African economies. But there is a great deal of hope. In 1963, Kwame Nkrumah, the former Ghanaian president, delivered an impassioned speech at the inaugural ceremony of the Organization of African Union Conference in Addis Ababa. And I'm going to quote him. "We shall accumulate machinery and establish steelworks, iron foundries and factories. We shall link the various states of our continent with communications, power. We shall drain marshes and swamps, clear infested areas, feed the undernourished, and rid our people of parasites and disease. It is within the possibility of science and technology to make even the Sahara bloom into a vast field with verdant vegetation for agricultural and industrial developments. We shall harness the radio, television, giant printing presses to lift our people from the dark recesses of illiteracy." Close quote. Although this sentiment was uttered almost 60 years ago, it seems almost more relevant today than it did then. Too often, Nkrumah's vision is seen as incompatible with African society, but this needs not to be the case. As we face a crossroads to lean into the words of the poet Robert Frost, it is apparent that we need a deliberate and strategic overhaul to return to a growth and development path that the African people deserve. Arguably, one way of achieving this is through the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution, with a particular focus on artificial intelligence. I was the deputy chair of the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution in South Africa, and the Fourth Industrial Revolution Task Team of Namibia, and the chair of the Africa Center of Excellence in the Internet of Things in Rwanda. So I know that we can do more, and we should do more. According to a recent PwC report, AI will expand Africa's economy by $1.5 trillion by the year 2030. And this is about 50% of the continent's current GDP. If it could only capture 10% of the fast-growing global market, we can even do more. As the authors of the Brookings Institute report, Joseph Travali and Kevin Muvunyi rightly said, and I quote, "In a world that is increasingly characterized by the enhanced connectivity and where data is pervasive, it is valuable. Africa has a unique opportunity to leverage new digital technologies to drive large-scale transformation and competitiveness. Africa cannot and should not be left behind." Close quote. There is a misconception that here in Africa, we cannot forge ahead with the 4IR because of the infrastructure gaps. Yet, Africa boasts the fastest growing population, the youngest population. We are home to formidable intellectuals and remarkable innovation, as I will talk about this later. It is therefore imperative that through the provision of quality education, as stipulated in SDG 4, we can and should turn this population growth into a demographic economic dividend rather than thrusting our people further into poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Admittedly, though I wear my pride on my sleeve, a growing concern for me has been how Africa has lagged behind as a result of the exponential growth in technological development. Across the globe, progress has been defined by the ability of humans to adapt to change. Here in Africa, we have largely missed that call. We have seen what a knock the continent has taken in being late to the 3 previous industrial revolutions, where gaps in infrastructure still exist today, where we have not yet been able to unleash our true potential. Yet there has been much progress. For instance, the 2022 State of AI in Africa report, published recently by AI Media Group, shows that in the last 5 years, many companies across the African continent are making efforts to leverage AI for business efficiency. At present, over 2,400 companies list AI as a specialty, of which 40% were founded in the last 5 years in Africa. In what shows that the industry is in its AI, are medium enterprises with less than 100 staff, while 41% are startups with less than 10 employees. Minister, I think we should incentivize more of these small and medium enterprises to develop, because the future of job growth in Africa depends on small and medium enterprises. There are already technological hubs and startups driven by youth across the African continent. As of 2019, there were approximately 440 innovation hubs and centers across the African continent, and many of these include AI as part of their offering. If we take a look at an example in South Africa of Stellenbosch, which some have called the Silicon Valley of Africa, for the first time we are seeing the growth of venture capitalists who are willing to invest in some of these technologies. And I think the African Union, together with its members, must actually start thinking about how we can develop the venture capital spaces so that we can be able to finance some of these innovations that are coming from the African continent. Because if technology is being developed outside the African continent without us, then it is going to discriminate against us. Throughout the African continent, we have also seen a push towards a national AI guidelines, and even an African AU version of that. Rwanda, Mauritius, Kenya, South Africa, and now Namibia are among countries that have national AI blueprints. But then again, there are countries in the continent that do not have AI blueprints. In the spirit of leaving no one behind, we have to come together so that we bring all parts of Africa into this new, very important age where our people cannot afford to be left behind. Yet, as the Pan-African AI for Africa blueprint points out, currently no African country is ranked in the top 10 countries expected to benefit most from AI and automation because of the slow adoption in the continent of this technology. Perhaps the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how do we leverage AI to ensure that we are afforded the opportunities the technology presents? There needs to be a skills revolution with a focus on communication skills, logical and numerical skills, all the way from the basic level of schooling. These skills should feed into the ability to code, think computationally, and have a holistic approach to problem solving. And of course, naturally, our education system should allow our especially our young people, to go across the African continent and look for those problems that they see and see how they can use technology to solve this. At the University of Johannesburg, we have a project exactly to do that called Africa Innovation by Bus, where we have taken over 10,000 students by bus to Namibia. In fact, as I speak, we have 200 students from South Africa who have come here by bus on Africa Innovation by Bus. We have taken them to Mozambique, to Zimbabwe, and Zambia. And just before COVID, we wanted to take them to Kampala via Kigali by bus. And the reason for that is because when you fly from one capital to another, you don't see the real problems of Africa. You don't stop at corner shops and realize that not everybody can speak English. A speech recognition tool where one can speak in isiZulu and somebody can be able to hear in Lozi, for example. And that is the sort of innovation that we need in the African continent. Our educational experience must become much more multidisciplinary, where the curriculum blends science and technology with human and social sciences for all the students. At the University of Johannesburg, we have a course called the Africa Insight module, where we teach African politics, economy, literature, and technology, so that people can understand Africa in its totality. There is a huge misconception that for us to leapfrog, we need skills that we do not have, especially technical skills. As the founder of Tunga, a hub that connects businesses with African software engineers, and Nestor's put it, and I quote, there are already a lot of good people who can write good code in Africa. That is absolutely not the bottleneck from our perspective. From our perspective, the bottleneck is what we call soft skills, close quote. And these skills can only be attained when we make those who are doing technological and science subjects also do human and social sciences, and vice versa. While part of the challenge of building technical skills for the huge swathe of the population that are skilled is great, there is also a great emphasis, there should also be a great emphasis on upskilling our already existing body of skilled workers. Universities must have courses now that are targeted at people who are already in the workforce, who have to come back and relearn and learn about new developments that are happening, especially in areas such as AI. Our policies need to be reframed in a manner that speaks to this advancement, but also speaks to an ethical approach. I think the work that has been done by UNESCO on ethics is actually quite important. Also, the work that has been done by the World Health Organization on ethical guidelines on AI in medicine is even important. And we need to have these ethical guidelines to all industries, because the specificities of industries require targeted guidelines. While AI enables new technologies that improve efficiency and productivity, it may also lead to increased inequities among and within countries, and our policies and strategies need to speak to these possibilities, ensuring that there are no gaps in transparency, accountability, safety, and ethical standards, which could hinder the development and sustainability of AI. What is required is regional collaboration to ensure that policy is based on harmonization inclusivity, and best practice. This is not something that can be done in isolation. It has to be done regionally and continentally. We need to create an enabling environment for open data to boost African AI exchange, innovation, and to create markets. We should establish AI data as a public asset and push towards open public sector data to reduce entry barriers and promote AI innovation. This will require our members of parliament to be much more technically literate, something that I will address a little bit later. We should form the Africa Data Institute, which should develop policies and laws for creating the Pan-African data sets and protecting these data sets from exploitation. As they say, data is the new oil, and Africa with 1.3 billion people, our data is indeed oil, and we have to monetize it to expand capital formation and decisively. And we know of big tech companies that are becoming even wealthier by mining the African database. We need to change that. There needs to be a greater investment into AI on the continent. This calls for a focus on AI centers and focus on localized applications of AI. Solid investment in facilities and spending for research to facilitate consolidation of researchers and professors is pivotal to creating an AI-driven economy. And these professors must be able to move from one country to another without any hindrance. And therefore, Minister, we need to lower the barriers of entry. I know in SADC it is much, much easier, but it is broader than SADC. We have to look beyond that. For example, in South Africa, we are launching the National Artificial Intelligence Institute that focuses on the application of AI to health, agriculture, finance, mining, manufacturing, and government, as well as regulations. Why do we do this? Because we firmly believe that when you go forward, whether it is in the health sector, you're going to have many diagnostic tools that will be based on software that has not been developed in the African continent, and sometimes database that has not been connected in Africa. And that is simply dangerous for the effectiveness of such a system. Of course, this institute will also be responsible for keeping abreast of and support capacity building in neural networks, natural language processing, and computer vision, among others. This will naturally lead to the establishment of the continent-wide Africa AI Institute that should focus on the application of AI in Africa. That will necessarily mean developing AI that understands African languages with all their rich and diverse complexities. The Masakane project that currently collects African languages data sets is an excellent platform that we should support. This AI, if we are successful, will then be able to recognize African faces with the same efficiency it recognizes faces from other parts of the world. And this AI should bring down the cost of medical care in rural areas. Because instead of needing a doctor, and we have a project that is doing exactly that, you can be able to have an app that looks at X-ray images and make diagnosis. And now we are finding out that these diagnoses are even better than human doctors. And this AI should help us tackle interstate conflicts, as our work with Monica Lagatio showed. It should help us monitor our aging infrastructure, as it is being done in many industries in Namibia and South Africa. It should help us tackle climate change. It should help us provide sustainable and secure energy, and help us offer clean water and sanitation. We need to make our people more literate in the area of AI. At the University of Johannesburg, now we have an AI literacy course that is compulsory for all our 50,000 students. It is an online course that is now free for all who are interested to take it. The Deep Learning Indaba, the organization founded by my two former graduate students, is driving machine learning in Africa, and it operates in 33 different countries, and last month it held its conference in Tunisia. We need to extend AI literacy to our lawmakers so that they are able to craft laws that will be beneficial for Africa in particular and the world in general. To spur the industrial and research application of AI, we need to make higher performance computing available for widespread use. The Higher Performance Computing Center of South Africa is a good start. We have to regionalize it and extend it to SADC so that we can scale it up. These are but few tangible steps we can take. What is apparent is that this is not a moment for us to rest on our laurels. Innovation is believed to emerge elsewhere, with Africa as a receiving agent. In other words, we are the way as the rest of the world, and this needs to change, and it needs to start now. Yet, as we take the use of AI in economics, across industries and in society, there are pockets of excellence and opportunities for the African continent that we simply cannot afford to miss. We can use this moment to leapfrog. We certainly have the mobile technology capabilities and the demographics to make this a reality. I leave you with the words of the President of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, who said on the Africa 50 meeting in Kigali in 2019, and I quote, "What we need to do as Africa is recognize that it is not oil or gas or minerals that is going to determine our competitiveness in the world. It is knowledge and the ability to innovate and create mega businesses that are going to be the Google and Facebooks of this world." Close quote. I thank you very much. Let us go and work hard to develop the African continent.